We got to get to our special guest. He is here. He is a man. Well, we can't say the man of 1,000 voices because that belongs to one legendary voice actor. The man who pretty much started it all, Mr. Mel Blanc. This guy is the man of like 742 voices. He doesn't do all of them, but he's close enough to just get the job. Please say hello to Mr. Jeff Bergman. Jeff, how are you, sir?
742. How did you know that's how many voices I do?
It was just enough to qualify to fool the guys at Warner Brothers, and they go, yeah, okay, get this guy out of my office. Just give him the job. We've got other things to do.
Well, and it's such a random number. Like, no one's going to think it's a lie.
Yeah.
Like 750, nice round number. But 742, that's got to be real, right?
Yeah, I mean, because look at some of the most successful men in history. Mel Blanc, man of 1,000 voices. Chris Jericho, man of 10,000 wrestling holds. Jeff Bergman, I can do half of them. I think that should get me the job.
Yeah.
Jeff,
thanks, guys, for having me on.
Of course.
This is awesome.
Very excited. Let's get your plug out of the way first, and then we'll do it again a little bit later in here. But you've got a signing coming up. Tell everybody where they can go and meet you and see what you do in real life.
Well, this is the very first live signing that I'm doing, and it's on Whatnot, and it will be happening Saturday, August the 3rd, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So it's on Whatnot, and you can find more out about this at OCCelebritymarketing.com, OCCelebritymarketing.com, and it's Saturday, August the 3rd.
So people get to, they go in, they buy their virtual ticket, and they get to log in and see you there with what you're doing?
Yeah, it's really cool. There's a lot of stuff that you can purchase. There's merch there. There's all kinds of things that, that's Bugs Bunny related, Looney Tunes related, Hanna-Barbera as well. And if you purchase, any one of the items, I'm doing a giveaway. There's 5 giveaways from my personal collection. One is a Toon Squad jersey from Space Jam. It hasn't been worn, so I don't want anyone to think that I wore it and sweated it up.
No, say Shaq wore it or somebody that wasn't in the movie. It's like, why was he wearing that thing? Right. I don't know, but it smells like Shaq. It couldn't be yours if the price is right.
Right, and then I have a pair of sneakers, also not worn, that were made specially for Space Jam: A New Legacy. They're super cool. And then I'm giving away an Xbox as well. So it's really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
So, you said this is the first of its kind. Like, you're doing a first virtual. Have you ever attended cons before? Have you done like live signings and things like that? Okay, so you've done some in-person stuff. This is just kind of new to you as far as like the virtual.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many Galaxy cons, so many fan expos.
Right.
They're all over the world. I was just in Telford, England, and got to meet so many nice people from Germany and Ireland and Manchester, everywhere. And then I was in Dallas. That was crazy. That was insane. And then I just got back from San Diego Comic-Con because I was doing a panel there for the new MeTV Toons channel, promoting their new cartoon channel. So, I mean, I've been doing so many cons that and you can't get everywhere. And fans will say, Jeff, when are you coming to North Carolina? When are you coming to, NYCC? When are you coming here? So,
Jeff, when are you coming home? His family. Like they're just constantly around the world.
When are we going to see you again? Yeah. So I'm really excited. This way people can engage that follow me either on Instagram or TikTok. They'll be able to, talk live. And then if they're interested, they can go over to Whatnot and grab something. So, yeah, there you go.
Now, Jeff, this is going to be the first of its kind for you. This might turn you in a way. Like, this is going to be the only way you want to do this. You're going to say, like, why am I traveling to meet people, wasting my time on airplanes and buses and trains and steamships because apparently it's the 1800s to get over to England. You're going to sit there on these digital things and go, I'm just going to do this from home every day.
No,
the amount of money I don't have to spend on hand sanitizer alone is just going to cause me to not go on these things.
No, my wife, she's like, Jeff, we have to stop the traveling. It's just too much. But honestly, the fans are, when you meet somebody in person and they come up to you, there's nothing that beats that. I mean, no, that's the coolest thing.
She says, yeah, you got to stop the traveling. You start doing this virtually, and then she goes come over and go, Jeff, you got to start the traveling again. You got to get out of here and start going back. I was wrong. I'll admit I was wrong. Get out of here.
No, well, I love the kids because, like, their moms will say, "That's Bugs Bunny," and then I'll go, "What's up, Doc? It's true. I'm a rabbit, all right." And they look at you like, that you're not.
You don't look like Bugs Bunny. I'm not going to believe this guy.
Yeah, no way. Yeah, so kids, it's such a visceral response when you say that's who when they see your face. It's like, I'm buying that.
I want to go back to sort of where all this started with you here. For those who don't know Jeff is a man who does so many voices. He was the first official replacement for Mel Blanc when Mel Blanc passed away. He was the first guy to get the job to fill in for Bugs and Daffy and other characters there. But we'll get to that in a second because Mel Blanc's a big part of the reason why you're doing this now. But this all started with you doing college radio.
I did. I loved radio. I felt like it was the only place for me because I thought, well, I don't know. I don't like stand-up. I tried it. I just wasn't funny. And then acting, on stage, I tried that in college. But radio seemed like, it just seemed like the perfect fit for me. And I started to do characters and voices on the radio in college. And I thought, okay, I think kind of this is what I want. And then Mel Blanc was actually giving a lecture at Pitt while I was getting my undergraduate degree. I think it was in my junior year.
Right.
And I happened to meet Mel, lightly stalked him back to his hotel room.
As one does, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, today that would never, I don't imagine that could ever happen today. But I knocked on his door around 10 o'clock at night and I heard this voice say, well, just a jiffy. And I thought, oh my God, that sounds like Barney Rubble. And he opens the door and I said, Mr. Blanc, I'm your biggest fan. I just saw your lecture at University of Pittsburgh. I promise if I could spend 3 minutes with you, I won't hurt you. I promise. And he said to me, are you Jewish or Italian? And I said, I'm Jewish. Come on in. So
it's like an old speakeasy password to let you in there.
It's also how he ordered his sandwiches too. So
yeah. So I mean, he was very nice. I mean, we sat for maybe 45 minutes and talked. And he said, if you ever get out to California, look me up. 8 years later, he died on my birthday on 1989, which was kind of weird, eerie. And then 3 weeks later, they were casting for Tiny Toons. Spielberg was looking to cast for Tiny Toons, and Mel was gone. And so there were national auditions, and I just had to audition for each character: Bugs, Daffy, Elmer, Sylvester, Tweety, Yosemite Sam, Foghorn Leghorn, and got to do all of those for Tiny Toons, and that was the beginning of how it all started.
You were at University of Pittsburgh. You were at the college radio station there, an AM station at the time. Now it's an FM station. WPGH AM when you were there. I'm sure it was the old studio where they had the round dials and for the microphones and cart and reel machines that barely worked. You found some kind of interest doing the radio. Was there something that influenced you? I mean, obviously Mel influenced you for doing the voices and the cartoons and what have you. But while doing radio, was there some show? Was there anybody that you listened to growing up that kind of steered you in that direction?
Well, I think there's something mysterious about radio that when you're doing a bit, you don't really know if anybody's laughing or anybody likes what you're doing. If you're a production manager, if the staff comes back and says, hey, that was great. Okay, you show up the next day. If they don't like it, well, all right, that's another story. But I think I kind of like the fact that I didn't get a reaction from doing like voices on the radio because if you're in a club and you don't get laughs, there's an instant feeling of like, oh my God, I'm going to get killed,
right.
Like I'm never going to come back again. But you don't know that on the radio, at least right away, So I think I like that. There was an intimacy there. And I don't know, I love what you guys do. And I just.
So it was something you just stumbled into on your own. There really wasn't anybody that you're like, wow, I kind of like that. Because most people in radio have at least one person that they listen to in whatever market, or maybe they were a national broadcaster coming out of New York or LA or something like that.
I mean, maybe Casey Kasem, because, he was really interesting because he had this amazing kind of silky voice, but yet Casey also did cartoon voices. I mean, he was
He was
Shaggy, right? And he was Robin, and so
he was in the Transformers too. I think the first season or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, so he had like this idyllic career, and then he did all these voiceovers. He was like the hot guy in the 70s. So I thought, wow, that's kind of a cool career.
So you meet Mel while doing college radio in Pittsburgh, and then whatever amount of time goes by, you're out in Los Angeles, and you're going around trying to get some work. The Jetsons movie is going on. Yeah. And this isn't Jetsons meets the Flintstone. This is just the Jetsons movie. Right. And if you want to talk about what could have been a potentially cursed production, was Mel Blanc died, who was the voice of everybody, but for the Jetsons he was Mr. Spacely, George's boss. And then you had George O'Hanlon, who was George. The two main voices in the movie, and they both passed away. You got tapped for it, and you did both voices in the movie.
Yeah, I did. And it was maybe the hardest session I ever had in my 40-year career, because who directed me? Bill Hanna of Hanna-Barbera. And at that time, he was in his late 70s. I was 29. He was so scary. And he would sit in the front row, and he would fall asleep as I was doing my takes. I'm doing it again. It doesn't sound right. And I thought, oh, God, if I could get through this, maybe I'll get through anything. And it was hard because both of these guys were old. Mel was old. George O'Hanlon was old. And so I had to match their reads from the film, and they had a pencil test, and it wasn't finished yet. Right. So it was really tricky, because when I came in there, I was thinking, oh boy, I'm going to get the big raise. I'm going to make it sound like that. Mr. Raise. Mr. Spacely. And I couldn't make it sound like that, because that's not what he sounded like. That was what he sounded like in 1962 when the series premiered. But now here's the late 80s, and he's much older. So I had to match what they had, and they recorded about 3/4 of the film. So I had to finish, the rest of it. And then Mel, the same thing with Mel. When he did Spacely in the early 60s, it was, Jetson, don't move, George. I want to remember just as you are. Fired. I mean, he had this big, powerful voice. And Mel just didn't have the same voice in the late 80s, so I had to match that. And so it was frustrating, because I knew I could really do it as the way people really remembered it. So,
was there ever a thought to, because you're saying how frustrating it is to match this, to going back and say maybe just letting you redo everything that they already did? That's
what I was hoping. Yeah, exactly. But, it's like Mel Blanc was a name, that's the gold standard. And so, and I think rightly so. I mean, he's earned that. He had 50 years or more in a career, and his name was on the poster, Mel Blanc. Voices by Mel, so they had to sell that, and I think Mel's acting was great. It's just he had late stage of emphysema, I think, and so he just didn't sound 100% the same. So it was an honor to do it. It was very hard to do it. In fact, next year it'll be the 35th anniversary of Jetsons the movie, and then if you remember, they actually brought in Tiffany. And she was the hot singer of the day.
Judy Jetson,
right. And that didn't quite work out, I guess, the way they hoped it would. But right. She was the flavor of that.
There were more Debbie Gibson fans at the office there than they were of Tiffany.
Debbie Gibson.
I was going to say, that movie came out right when I was around 10 years old, and I was, I used to watch that movie constantly. And when we talk about, getting into radio and having that one guy, Rick Dees was my introduction to radio, and he was in the movie as Rocket Rick.
That's so funny, because I loved Rick Dees. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was on his show when he had that nighttime show.
Yeah.
And he had me on, and I was doing all the voices. And his wife, actually, Julie, was a really good impressionist. She's a great voice artist. I don't know if she's still in the industry, but I loved Rick. So
that was my first real introduction to radio as a younger listener, and then as I got older, obviously it was other people. But yeah, Rick Dees was that. His voice was iconic, and then just having him in that movie was such a big thing for me, because I was a big fan of Tiffany at the time, because I'm 10 years old, and going back and listen and realizing there was no discernible difference in the voice work for me. I would have never known two people were playing George. You know what I mean? So like that, I mean, that's great. It just to be able to keep Mel on there and then you come in and take over for that, fourth, fifth, whatever the movie. It's pretty impressive. Like I love that movie.
Especially for like a first gig, when when you finally get tapped to like, okay, we're going to let you do some stuff. You got to fix that project first, and then we'll give you bugs. And you're like, all right, I have to be George Jetson. Fine, whatever. You've only been watching it forever. It's like it's not like you didn't know every episode inside and out that you could go and just nail the impression.
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird year because Warner Brothers was working on a project with Quincy Jones. Quincy had this character called the Dude, and the Dude was going to be in Harlem, and he was going to meet up with Bugs Bunny. And so, wow, that's really cool. So I got the call from my agent, and she said, "You're going out to L.A. and you're going to meet Quincy Jones, and you're going to record a rap with his character, the Dude." And so I'm like, "Oh my God, this is so cool!" So this is then 1989. So there's no cell phones. So he picks me up in his van, and we get stuck in the Hollywood Hills, and we're there for like 2 hours because his driver had to go get a part for the car. I mean, it was like the most ridiculous. So I'm in the van with Quincy Jones talking about The Color Purple and how hard it was to get it made. And it was just such a crazy experience. And then when we finally got to the studio, I mean, it was like he was just the coolest, smoothest guy. And it was like I had whatever rhythm I had was gone. It was just, I had no rhythm. And he was like, "Look, Jeff, what you got to do is you got to feel the rhythm. Just kind of let it get inside your body and just take over. You know what I'm saying? And you just be the Bugs Bunny that you are, but just feel it. Just get into the groove of it, baby." And the more he was trying to be nice, the worse I got. But I mean, we got through it. But Warner Brothers.
Did you do that impersonation in front of him?
I did not.
Could you imagthen?
You should have just leaned over and I got what you're saying. Just start doing his voice right back to him, and I think he would have loved it.
Yes. Then he would have loved it. Today, I don't know that I could get away with that.
Today, he would probably have you disappeared. So
yeah.
One other real quick thing, and then we'll move on from into everything else that you were doing, but move on from your college radio stuff. I was looking up some stuff about your college station. I didn't realize this was the station a few years before you was the guy that they based Good Morning Vietnam on.
Oh,
the
really?
guy who Robin Williams was portraying, Adrian Joseph Cronauer.
Adrian Cronauer.
Was where is it through here? Yeah, when they launched that station in 1957, he was one of the founding students and I guess temporary faculty for that radio station. Then went on to be, known for his work and tour of duty over in Vietnam, and that's the guy that Robin Williams was portraying in the movie. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is, but what's interesting is that, Robin Williams you guys saw that movie. He's brilliant in that film. He's so electric. I don't think he was that kind of personality. I mean, he was, but they embellished it a lot,
right?
Just to make it more cinematic, But yeah, that's I think that might be my favorite Robin Williams performance of all time. I just love that.
I love Popeye. I know it's not very well received, but it was like the first movie I saw as a kid, and that Popeye just kind of resonated with me. I know it's not everyone's favorite. I think with
Shelley Duvall's passing, I think a lot of people are now discovering Popeye for the first time. So I think it's going to get a resurgence.
He was great in that too. He was. I heard that he wanted to be in the Harry Potter films, and I think he would have been amazing because he's such a quirky character. But they just didn't want him in that because
he wasn't British.
Rowling said you have to be British, right?
Right.
Yeah. He could have done like if you know John Cleese's role, he was Headless Nicholas.
Oh my God, that would have
Nearly
been
Headless Nick. Yeah.
Nearly Headless Nick. He would have been like great as one of those spirits in essentially their dining hall, their cafeteria, if you will. They're just coming around, hanging out with people in the paintings. All that stuff.
Goats look like Patch Adams.
Yeah, all the paintings are just different Robin Williams movies.
Yeah.
You had some time, as you said, on Tiny Toons, which was
Yeah.
Definitely a staple
love
for
that
people
show.
of our age growing up on, part of the Fox's animation thing or whatever they did in the afternoon to watch all the stuff. You were portraying the older characters while everyone else was doing all the younger characters.
Right. Yeah.
Is it weird to have you're like doing the juxtaposition of the characters you're embodying, like you're Bugs, and then there's Buster Bunny right there, the younger guy is essentially, you're like, you don't know, is he Bugs' kid or not? They never really explain if they're the parents.
That's a great question, because in those days we all worked together.
Right.
So there was Babs and Buster, and there was me doing the classic characters. And then there was Maurice LaMarche and Frank Welker and Don Messick. They were all doing these new characters. So you didn't know if these kids, the cousins or whatever, you didn't know if it was going to go over. And it was weird hearing them, because it's like they kind of sounded like the Looney Tunes family, but not really. So like you didn't really know if it was going to be a hit. But it was fun because we all got to work together. And so much has changed in the industry now where actors don't even see each other. Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, they never met until the premiere of Toy Story. They never had scenes together. Weird. It's totally weird. Yeah, because you don't have that person to play off of, So I had a lot of fun doing Tiny Toons. And then now we have Tiny Toons Looniversity,
right,
which was the reboot.
Yeah.
And of course even more isolated because of the pandemic. I did most of the series in my slippers, in my home studio.
Spielberg was a big name for pushing to get that done, even though it wasn't a property that he was ever associated with or worked on any of that kind of Warner Brothers stuff. But he was really the guy that made that happen for Tiny Toons, and then that begat like Animaniacs and other different Warner Brothers Tales. No, that was Disney, but other different Warner Brothers properties and stuff to come to the fruition of like, hey, we're doing something, we can make some money, and they're being well received by kids in the afternoon when they're coming home from school. He was also at that time pushing and kind of revolutionizing the video game market, because he was big into video games at that time. So did you get a chance to voice any of these characters when they were doing the video game properties?
I remember meeting Steven Spielberg at I believe it was the wrap of our series, or maybe been the last episode. Oh no, actually, the last episode we recorded of Tiny Toons was the opening episode. They saved that for last so that we would purposely come in really strong. We knew who we are. We had all the characters developed. There was like a synergy between the directors and the actors.
Right.
And so that's when I met him, and and of course, it was all over that season. And I said, is everything okay? Am I doing great? He says, you're doing great. Keep up the good work and everything. But I don't ever remember doing I remember doing a Jetsons video game. I remember doing Looney Tunes video games. We didn't have there was like the CD-ROM stuff. I think I did something there. But yeah, I did the Space Jam Xbox,
right.
that was kind of fun to do that game. That was just a couple of years ago.
Well, how did you feel about how Tiny Toons got so big that all of a sudden, like, people were just begging to be involved with that universe, with either Animaniacs or with Tiny Toons, that this band, They Might Be Giants, opened their catalog, and you guys did a whole episode that was just storytelling based on their songs for half an hour.
Gosh, I can't. I don't even know if I remember that.
Oh, you don't remember that?
It's like a vague memory. Maybe that was like season 2 or. But again, I'm not surprised. Crossovers, trying to, mesh worlds. I mean, we had an episode of where we had Snoop Dogg, with Bugs rapping, So, but yeah, I mean, everybody started to want to do voiceover. And it's a very difficult, industry to get into. It's very hard. I mean, on big projects, film projects, it's celebrities that get usually the first, but then there's the second tier, which are a lot of people like myself that don't have, Tom Cruise notoriety. And that's very competitive. Maybe there's 60 people that do everything,
You've worked with a lot of big names. I mean, just that little roster for Tiny Toons. We've had Maurice LaMarche on the show. We're good friends with Rob Paulson, so they're always joined at the hip most of the time for Pinky and the Brain. And I'm trying to think who else you worked with. Billy West, right?
I've worked with Billy West, absolutely.
Jim Cummings, I saw that video recently that blew up on Instagram and stuff.
I love Jim Cummings so much.
Who doesn't?
Super talented.
Darkwing Duck. Like, he's so great.
Who haven't you worked with that you wanted to work with?
Oh, my God. Okay. Simpsons. Dan Castellaneta. I haven't worked with him. Harry Shearer. I'm huge fans of both of them. Nancy Cartwright. I mean, I've met Nancy. I never actually met Dan Castellaneta. He's like a volcano, he's like this quiet, diminutive guy. And then once you get him, he's doing voices, he's like explodes. So yeah, definitely those guys. I mean, I never got to work with Mel. I met him, obviously. I did work with Don Messick, who was the voice of Scooby-Doo. And Don was like this stealth bomber, never said anything. But when that mic went on, explosion. Just, yeah. But the voice people are like that. I find,
When you all get together, is it just like, are you happy to be around like-minded individuals where you go,
No.
we're not doing the voices here, right? Nope, we're all good. And everyone's just having coffee or dinner.
If I hear one Bugs Bunny,
you're out of here, Bergman.
No, everybody's trying to get the spotlight. Everybody's trying to outdo each other.
Oh, they are.
Oh, totally. Yeah, we can't stop. I mean, we're all just wired that way. Nobody can get a word in edgewise. I mean, that's
What's going on in that part of the restaurant, that back room of the restaurant there? I don't know, but I think the Cartoon Network's having a fight. They're all just yelling at each other.
Right? It's like, hey, the entire cast of Who Framed Roger Rabbit's back there, just yelling at each other.
Talk about what started it all. If it wasn't for Roger Rabbit, we wouldn't have had the '90s animation. Asian. Yeah, that started everything. That still to this day maybe my favorite animated film.
Something you'll never see, at least right now, you'll never see again, where two major well, actually, you know what? That could be incorrect. Two major companies, the biggest identities for animated works, Disney and Warner Brothers, worked together to make a movie where they were allowing their IP to interact like they were all in the same universe. Right. I was just saying, it's like you haven't seen anything like that since, and probably wouldn't again. But they just bundled HBO Max with Disney Plus now, so who knows? Maybe those doors are back open again, and they'll work on something. Maybe Roger Rabbit 2 is in the works.
That would be so great. I mean, Daniel Ross he does Donald Duck, and so he's got to be very careful about where he does the voice. And I said, come, Daniel, I should do a Daffy to your Donald. And he's like, I really want to do that, but I don't know. They're particular. Nancy Cartwright couldn't do Bart Simpson for a long time. She wasn't allowed to say anything, and then she could say like, eat my shorts or whatever her line was.
I saw a video of her the other day. She's going through drive-thrus at Starbucks, and she's ordering coffee orders as Bart, and then she pull up, and everyone's like, oh my God, it's the person who does the voice.
I saw her at a food truck doing that. I was like, good for her. Yeah. Good for her. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so
If I had that talent, I'd be doing it everywhere.
Yeah. Well, they loosened up after years. I mean, originally, I think Matt Groening and James L. Brooks like, well, it spoils the illusion if we see the person do the voice. But
yeah, but that's like... Yeah, that's old way of doing business. And in some ways, that is the right way to look at some stuff. But look, if wrestling got rid of what they call kayfabe, where they don't have to protect the characters and the business that way anymore, it's like, no, if you're in the airport and a kid comes running up to you, even though you're the big bad heel right now, you take a photo, you shake a hand, you be a human being first, and then put smiles on their faces for doing what you do, and then you can go in the ring and then kick 9 guys in the head and be the bad guy again. I like that they do that now. It's not like they're just stumbling into Target and just doing all their voices over the intercom or something.
That'd be hilarious.
But if you run up to them, almost all the voice people are pretty nice. Like
yeah. So, well, there's the only person I recently was in Dallas doing the Fan Expo there, and who was there? William Shatner. He's like 93.
Yeah.
So
he does one voice. He's hardly a voice actor.
Right. He's hardly right. You wouldn't say that. But we actually were in a project together. He did Batman versus Two-Face. And I played the Cesar Romero Joker role in that, and then reprised the Batman announcer role in that. So I thought, all right, this is my shot to meet Shatner. He's sitting there all alone. He's on his phone. The only person that's near him is his handler. And so I went up, Mr. Shatner, I'm just a huge fan. I just wanted to say you did a great job in Batman versus Two-Face as Two-Face. And, I went through my spiel. I did it, got it out in 20 seconds. And he went, that's nice. And that's it.
That's disheartening.
I don't want to meet him. I don't, because it's like one of those things, like I love Star Trek and all that. And it's like, sometimes you just don't want to meet your heroes.
Yeah, and I thought, oh man, now I'm reading his book, Boldly Go, and I'm like, now I don't want to read the rest of it now. I bought that book and he wasn't super friendly, but anyhow, he's in his
like,
90s.
I know how it ends with me being disappointed.
or how it is in my world. Did you get the photo? Did you get a photo with Mr. Shatner?
I got a photo, several of them, eating cheese and different.
It's amazing.
Different snacks.
Like he just raids catering whenever he shows up on set.
Yeah, not with him, but I took photos of him.
I found another little tidbit that's interesting, because we had talked about how you got on the Jetsons project because of George and Mel had passed away. You also got another gig from somebody passing away, where you took over the voice of the Pillsbury Doughboy.
That is I love that you brought this up, because it is not true, but it never seems to go away. I auditioned for it, Hi, I'm Poppin' Fresh, the Pillsbury Doughboy. Pillsbury crescent rolls have so much butter flavor, they're hard to forget. And when I auditioned for it, people, oh my God, that's great. And I sent my tape in, and then it was in the papers that Jeff Bergman's going to be the new voice of the Pillsbury Doughboy. Leo Burnett, advertising agency. I don't know, this just got spun into a yarn, but it never really happened. But I did become the voice of Charlie the Tuna for Starkist, which was kind of around the same time, sort of. So it's sort of half true, half not true.
All right, because
did they
the
not
information...
like the noise you make when you poke your belly? Like, did they just not be cool with that portion of it? Because it sounded great.
That was the audition. He walks into a room, there's just a camera and a black couch, and they just keep poking his stomach, making him do the laugh over and over.
It's like, no, sorry, you're going to have to get out.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's very funny with the laugh. They were so specific, I remember with that. No, it's not two giggles, it's just one. It's just,
It's very specific.
It's very specific. They know what they want.
They're very protective of their IP.
That's right.
All right, so you got that on your own merit. It was not because Paul Frees had died in 1986 and then you got that job too, because otherwise I'm following Jeff around for auditions, because Jeff seems to get everybody who's knocking off. Jeff gets the job. So eventually he's going to pass on one, and then I'll go and apply for that one.
Well, my father used to have a joke that whenever I was working on a voice, he was like, oh, God, I hope they don't die, because that's what, and that's what would happen. I'd work on a voice and that person would die. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't want that responsibility.
It was just your path in life, my friend. That was just the talents you were given, and that was the path that they laid out for you. You got to do something else really interesting. From what I read, there's two different stories on this. You did the voices of Bugs and Daffy and Porky for a clip that was in Gremlins 2: The New Batch. Yes. Was that from an actual property you worked on, or was that made specifically for that movie?
Okay. My favorite question so far that you've asked me. That was one of my coolest jobs ever in 42 years. I was directed for that title sequence by the Chuck Jones.
Wow.
And I know.
I want to tell you, that was a masterclass in voice direction. And it's like, this is your captain speaking. You have the best possible captain to take you wherever you need to go. And he was the most incredible. I mean, he created Daffy Duck, so he knows these characters. And he had storyboards for 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes of dialogue that were like, encyclopedic, that was that thick. We went through every storyboard, every emotion, and he even made like physical gestures with Bugs and Daffy. So I had such a visual sense of it. And it's still one of my most favorite things that I've done with the Looney Tunes. But yeah, I think I'm probably, I would say no, I'm not probably. I'm the only person alive that was directed by Chuck, the original creator. So that was amazing.
His galleries are fantastic. We'll be in San Diego next week doing the show. I want to go back over to the Chuck. I haven't been there in a few years. I'd love to go back over to the Chuck Jones gallery over there.
It's super cool. I was there last year for a Comic-Con and stopped by the gallery. And Joel, who runs the gallery, I mean, they have some super cool, amazing cells. They even have stuff that Bob Clampett did and Robert McKimson. They just have.
And I'm sure there's like a Tex Avery thing somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure there is. Yeah, completely. It's just to go there and just to see that artwork. And it's like when you would do animation years ago, and I would get cells. You would get a cell. And it was like an original stuff from the production. Well, they don't do that anymore. There's no cells anymore.
I'm a lifetime Simpsons fan. As a kid, I was sneaking to watch the Tracy Ullman show just to see the little shorts that they had, and then they spun off their own thing. And you can't see it, but on the other side of the studio over there, I have a Simpsons couch gag animation cell. And I had that framed. It's behind UV museum glass. Like nothing is touching that thing. It's about as secure as the Constitution. And you're right. You just can't get those things anymore. And it's kind of sad because now they can print them out and sell them, but you're not getting the official, layer of the artwork that they had to stack 6-7 on a time just to get to capture a scene in a room.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know if they're going to increase, but now, what the big thing now are these Funkos. I've signed so many of them. They'll have Space Jam, Bugs Bunny Funko, Fred Flintstone Funko. Those things, they are serious collectibles.
Oh yeah, we got tons.
You got
tons.
Nice.
Believe me, sir, we're not new to this game. I have ones that are signed by all kind. Like I must have broken Rob Paulson's hand for all the characters he did, and.
I've got a Bugs Bunny that I think came with one of the Blu-ray sets that came out. So they did like a Blu-ray set, and then mine came with like a Funko of Bugs Bunny. So yeah, they're just everywhere.
Yeah, I don't.
With everything.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure like why or how. That's a whole other subject matter, I guess. Yeah.
I heard that they're the precious moments for people in their 40s like us. So those little precious moments like. Like the praying kids and things like that. No, that's what these are.
Yeah, if you didn't collect those dishes or spoons or thimbles or stuff to hang on the wall, this is what our generation has been collecting.
Oh my gosh.
You're currently a lot of your current work. You do rotating characters for the world of Seth MacFarlane, who is pretty much today's modern version of Hanna-Barbera. With Family Guy, when Cleveland Show was on, American Dad, which I still think is still generating episodes.
21 years. I just read something that they're doing their 21st year or 21st season.
Seth was, he got into animation because of the Flintstones. And so when he heard that I was Fred, he would have me come in. And I remember one time there was no dialogue. I thought, where's the script? And he says, you don't have a script. You're in the bathroom. And you're just taking a dump. That's it. And all I want you to do is I want you to struggle. That's it. And so I didn't see him. He was on the phone. He was, I don't know, in New York somewhere directing me. And I'm in Los Angeles. And I just went, and I silence. I don't hear anything. And he is laughing so hard that he's wheezing. And then I finally hear him. And all he said afterwards was, do it again. Do it again. Because he just want to hear it again. And so that, I don't know where, that's somewhere.
Taking a yabba dabba dump.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, people love that kind of stuff. And I know he wanted to do a series. And Warner Brothers was not going to have a potty, Fred Flintstone. They weren't going to do that. But he was like, Jeff, I want you to do it. And I'm like, yeah, it'd be great. Maybe next to that, probably my favorite job was when I did Our Cartoon President. And I got to do, Trump and Biden. That was just, Oh, it was cathartic. It was just the best experience.
It's just instead of screaming about it on social media, you're getting paid to scream about it as in an animated form and make some money off of it. Jordan, what do you have?
I just, for me, Gremlins was the big thing. Like, I was a big fan of Gremlins growing up, the first one. Just to find out that the animated stuff for the second one was made specifically for that was such a wild thing. Like, because you can the first one they had Snow White and they're watching it. It's like, okay, that's an existing property. You just get the rights, you bring it over. But for them to create something specific for it, I find just absolutely fascinating. Like, I love movies. I love voice work probably more than most. I went to a gaming convention here in Phoenix, probably back in March, and just to meet people that create that sort of thing, because you could be 1,000 people. You don't have to be boxed into this one character. You've got Shatner, who is always going to be, Picard. Just kidding. Yeah, screw him. But you know what I mean. You're not typecast. You can be anybody. Yeah, and you can retain the anonymity of being able to go out, being able to go to a restaurant and not be mobbed by people. And I would think that would be something great, and something that can be something that you can have to yourself. You have that moment, and now you can be a person on the outside of it. And I just find it fascinating. And
honestly, the sometimes you do something and you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
You don't even know if it's going to be, like when you mentioned Gremlins 2. There was a bunch of ad lib stuff that I had done, and it ended up in the movie. If you remember going to the end of the movie, Daffy peeks in on the screen while the credits are rolling, and he said, "Don't you people have homes? Go home. It's over. It's over." And I don't know. We were just like goofing around at the end of the set, and that ends up being animated in the film, and that was like amazing. Stuff like that. I remember when I became the announcer for Boomerang, I never thought it was anything other than just a job. And then my wife said, "You should make a video out of that on TikTok." And I did, and people were freaking out.
Yeah, you were the voice for like 15 years for that.
Yeah.
When networks still had a main anchor voice, like other than you, Jordan and I were talking about this the other day. Other than you with Boomerang, one of the voices that always stuck in my head was Penn Jillette as the voice of Comedy Central in the early days, like through the 90s when it launched. Yeah. Every segue between shows and promos and everything was all Penn Jillette's voice.
Yeah.
And then your voice comes around, it was like 2000 or something, right? For when Boomerang started?
Actually, earlier. It was 90, I think it was 96. So all the people that know me, they're in their late 20s because they would come home from school and watch Boomerang. And so some guy and was in Pittsburgh came up to me, and he was almost in tears. He had to Zen calm himself down. And then when I just said to him, Boomerang, it's all coming back to you. The Flintstones and the Jetsons on Boomerang. I mean, he was so emotional about it. I never expected that. It really hits a nerve, in that generation.
It's hitting a nerve now, just because I'm like, I remember, because it's a voice that you're not. It's not a voice that you think of remembering, like a voice of Bugs or Fred or something, but that voice was always playing because you were watching that channel all the time, and then to hear that and you go, wait a minute, I know that voice. You can hear him in a restaurant, you could hear him at an airport. You may not know what the guy looks like, but you damn well know what that voice is and how powerful just like an audio suggestion really is.
Crazy. Yeah. I to this day. And my wife said to me, "Oh, no, I think people are going to really like that. Put that out. You'll see." And she was right. I mean, I got hundreds of thousands of comments. It was insane.
You'd be surprised how much nostalgia goes a long way nowadays with people, especially in our age. Like we'll sit there and we'll talk at night together and we'll go over just commercials that we remember growing up with and songs and
something. We'll say something and one word, one term triggers something, a memory, and you go, oh wait, yeah.
You don't. I mean, you guys would probably know this because you're around this. My wife's in your age group, where I became the voice of Barney Rubble for Fruity Pebbles. So watch me trick Fred out of his Cocoa Pebbles. I mean, I don't know. I did that for about 20 years. And Fred is still being tricked out. He still hasn't figured it out.
I was going to say that's a property, and I've questioned this numerous times, especially recently with kids of my own. I have a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old, and they have never just taken to some of the cartoons I've shown them. I'm always wondering who is still buying Fruity Pebbles, that it's a kid, and who is still taking Flintstones chewables. Because no kid nowadays has watched any of these properties. My mom grew up with the Flintstones in the 60s, and I grew up because of it, watching the Flintstones and the Jetson. So that makes sense to me. My kids, like, who are the Flintstones? And I feel bad that I have not done a better parenting job. But, like, it's just wild that you're still doing those voices for things like even, like, the Flintstones and, like, what was it, the WWE? Like doing mashup videos, like how wild is that to still be able to do those characters and try to bring them into 2023, 2024? You know, it's such a wild thing.
It's bizarre because when you walk down the cereal aisle and you see, oh, there's Fred and Barney on the Pebbles box, but yet there's no animated series, so the kids don't really know. It's like, oh, those are, I guess, characters that are for that cereal, whoever they are. I mean, it's so funny. I mean,
they're put into a category like the Trix Rabbit or Toucan Sam or something like that. You're just known from being a cereal box, and you go, no, this show goes back like 60 years.
Right. Like it's had 200 episodes. What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, like when I was a kid, I loved Hawaiian Punch. And then years later, I became the guy that took over for that character. So that was me that said, hey, how about a nice Hawaiian Punch? Fruit juicy. There's 7 kinds of fruit in Hawaiian Punch. 7 kinds of fruit in Hawaiian Punch.
I'm starting to think the 742 might be the right amount of voices that we thought of.
We're getting close.
Going, please do more.
I'm hitting the hand clicker as we go. The Hawaiian Punch thing. You didn't. When did you take over that voice? Do you know about what year?
Yeah. Early 90s.
Okay. There is one Hawaiian Punch ad that I know, the older ones, when it used to come in the big metal container and you'd have to puncture it like High C and Kool-Aid and stuff.
Yes,
but there was one in the 90s where they kind of did a weird rap version of the Hawaiian Punch.
Oh my God.
So it's like the song just goes something at a hunch with the funky dude in antlers from Hawaiian Punch, and the guy goes Hawaiian Punch like he's pontificating. Should I drink Hawaiian Punch? I don't know why that always stuck in my head, but you were the one doing the voices on that.
Yes.
Killing me.
Yes.
Jeff, I didn't realize how much I valued you in my life until today, but here we are now, just realizing, damn, Jeff has been a big part of a lot of our lives with the work that he has done.
Almost to be where like a weekly segment should be Jeff comes on and reminds us how much we miss our childhood. Just like,
remember when times were better? Remember the things you used to love?
Yeah, the remember stuff. I do have a question. So you said that at some point you transitioned to where you're not really in the same room with a lot of people. You did a series that many people probably don't know. And this is just some of the cast. Norm Macdonald was in this show. Fred Armisen, things like that. You did a few episodes of the Mike Tyson Mysteries.
I did several. Mm-hmm.
Did you get to work with any of the cast in person? Did you meet Mike Tyson? Or was this one of those, at this point, you guys had transitioned to where you came in, did your bit, and then you're out?
Wow. Well,
'cause I love that show. It's such a
We had
show.
Tyson on the show. He was promoting a bunch of different things at that time, but we had him on for Mike Tyson Mysteries.
Oh my God! Well, first of all, out of all the interviews I've ever done, no one's ever asked me about that show. And
that show.
I first of all, that show is very special to me in particular because the writers that wrote that show wrote the Looney Tunes show, which is where I first met them, and they're from the Groundlings, and they would go to Vegas to record Mike because he lived in Las Vegas. I got to not only work with a little bit, I got to be a little friendly with Norm Macdonald. And I think Norm is just a year older, 6 months older than me. We knew all the same people that from SNL because I did a show. It was like my first big gig in '84, and it was for Lorne Michaels. He did a show called The New Show. And when he had left, and
I was going to say that was in that transition where he had left SNL, huh?
Right, just that very short period of time. And so, but anyhow, Norm was, I mean, he was so special and so, there was no one like him. I don't know who you could, what category you could put Norm in, but he just was, I just loved him. And I only got to know him a little bit, but yeah, that super fun show. I mean, the stuff that they did was just so different. And I remember asking the writers, like, are you scared to work with Mike? And they went, oh my God, he's a pussycat, but you
gotta tread lightly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't want to, because I'll never forget. I remember somebody had asked him, Mike, what's your strategy? When you're fighting an opponent you've never fought before, what do you? He said, well, the thing is that what means, when I'm going to ring, I like to know who the, I just want to know who the, the referee is, because I'm going to kill the other guy. And and then I just heard a meme. He was just talking like, I'm scared right now. I'm really scared. I'm really scared. I'm scared. But when it gets closer to the fight, I'm not as scared, because. And then the day of the fight, when I get in the ring, you're going to be afraid of me. You're going to be scared of me. I'm not going to be scared of you. And you believe him. I mean, you believe him.
The show I used to work on was nationally syndicated for like 20 years. It was on satellite radio and stuff. We were in every market except LA. LA would never clear a station to put us on there. But one of the guys I worked with, Anthony, used to do an amazing Mike Tyson impression, so much that eventually it did get back to Mike. So the first time he came on, he wanted to see the guy who was doing the Mike impression, because he's like, I will not sit out here and suffer the wounds and the slanders from all these alligators that are being thrust against me. And you're like, oh my God. Anthony was just amazing at doing the voice. And when Tyson came in the first time, he's like, I want to hear you do it. So
oh no,
that's very, but it was great that he loved it, because he came back several more times.
Like, come and do me.
Yeah, he came back for that. He came back. He had a pigeon series that was on like the Travel Channel for a while. Then he had the one.
Right, he did have that.
And then he had the one man documentary show, the one man storytelling show that he was doing. When we were in San Diego one year and Mike Tyson's Mysteries were coming out, Cartoon Network had taken the lawn outside of the convention center and made their own like little amusement park. And some of the prizes that you could get were Mike Tyson face koozies for your soda and for your beer. So I have them upstairs. I should have brought them down to show you, but they were some of the most ridiculous things that he approved, because he loved the idea. And I just you just slide a can of seltzer in there and you're walking around, and it looks almost like his 8-bit face from the Mike Tyson Punch-Out.
Right.
They really, for a show that a lot of people remember but was loved by the ones who did see it, they put out an enormous amount of merch for that show for its short run.
Well, it ran for 6 years and had like 69 episodes. Like,
there's a lot of episodes. I get to do like crazy characters. Like they came to me and they said, we need you to do like an L. Ron Hubbard. And I'm like, oh, right now I can do it. But that was so fun to do him. And then to just listen, because, as actors, we have to listen to voices and, YouTube things. And I just remember the gradations and the system people. Nothing that he said was nothing articulate. I could not glean anything from what he said from all the interviews that I watched. And I was hysterical laughing. And so that episode is one of my favorites, because it's just, you don't know what he's talking about.
Sounds like Mitch McConnell now that I'm thinking about it.
I was going to say that did sound like a lot like Mitch McConnell. Which actually leads me into something. Do you find it's harder to emulate somebody or create your own character? Because I'm a video gamer, and I know you from being Ronald Reagan in Call of Duty, Black Ops.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, it just feels like because you have a template to follow, it might be easier, but I don't know.
It's easier and harder. That was very hard because I did the motion cap for that Call of Duty. So we were on a soundstage and I had to walk out. So when you see me sitting, it's me in the chair, even though it's Reagan. And so I had to, be the physicality of being very presidential in these United States of America, and had to gesture as Ronald Reagan. And so I had to kind of like crazily embody that. And, it's like with a voice that everybody knows, if you don't sound like that, the trolls will come after you. No, that's not him. That doesn't sound like him. So in one sense, it's harder because people have whatever it is that they remember Bugs Bunny sounds like, or Ronald Reagan sounds like. Now, creating a character, that's so fun because there's nothing to compare it to. So if you get to do that, my God, that's, it's incredible, So in a sense, it's harder because in a way you have nothing to work from, except the animator says, well, he's a fat guy, and he's got an Irish accent with a big belly. And so maybe you get something like that. And then you're just hopefully working like Simpsons. Like when you watch season 1 and 2, it doesn't sound like Homer. It's like a different guy.
He's still doing he's still leaning towards the Walter Matthau before becoming, the Homer that we know and love to this day. I want to ask you some about getting the mantle for Looney Tunes. Such an amazing and unprecedented feat to take over from the great Mel Blanc. But then there's been other people who are also doing Bugs. I know Billy West was doing Bugs for a while, and there's other legendary voice people coming in to do Looney Tunes projects. So do you have a say at that time of what projects you want to work on, or are they working on so many different things? It's like, well, you're working on this. We're going to have Billy come over here and voice Bugs for this thing, and then we're going to have this guy come over there and do that.
It depends. Like for Tiny Toons, because I was the original voice for Tiny Toons for Bugs Bunny and Daffy and Elmer, I got to do a lot. I get to reprise a lot of those roles for the reboot version in 2021, 22. Space Jam, honestly, I had to audition for it because it wasn't just Warner Brothers. It was, the directors, the producers, the writers, the animation execs. And honestly, I was up against some other people, but I was up against some celebrities because they were actually going to have it with a possible celebrity voice.
A celebrity voicing Bugs?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
Can you tell?
Yeah. It was, there was a line and I went, wait a second. Because they played me something and they said, well, we don't want you to do that line. We want you to do the line afterwards. And I went, God, that sounds like Nathan Lane coming out of Bugs Bunny's mouth. I think.
Wow.
And like I knew, no one ever said that, but like I knew it was Nathan Lane. I remember when I told my mother I was gay, she said, "Oh, you're better off dead." It was. I knew it was his voice. And so I thought, my God, are they just going to go in a completely different direction? And I went, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm just going to do the Bugs Bunny that is in my head that I know, that I grew up with. And that was it. So they weighed in, and I don't know, it was about a year before they let me know that I got it. And that was...
Man, imagine you're auditioning for a job, and you're thinking like, all right, they're going to go through all the voice talent. It'll take a couple weeks, but I'll hear something. You're waiting a year before they're like, hey, you got the job. What job?
Yeah.
You remember coming in for this? I forgot all about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what happened the first time when I auditioned for Bugs. I made a tape and got it to Warner Brothers, and they went, "Well, this is great, but we're not going to give him the job." And so then they had national auditions, and then it was like, well, okay, so you got to make a cassette tape. I made a cassette tape in those days, and it was just a cassette of Bugs Bunny. And then I had another audition for Elmer Fudd, and so on and so forth. And so it was like a laborious kind of a process. And then you have callbacks. So then they want to see, oh, did you do anything weird? Did you alter the voice? They want to make sure you can do it. So, then they have a callback, So it sometimes it can be a really lengthy process until you get anything,
So you know other people, other very credible and very talented voice people who it's like, well, they do Bugs, I do Bugs, they do Looney Tunes guys and stuff. Imagine there's no kind of rivalry, right? Is it? Is who's going to get what?
Oh, I think there's a rivalry.
Oh, there is.
Yeah. Oh, heck yeah. I mean, if you want that gig, you got to show up with your A game and, you got to give it everything you got and hope you get it. I mean, it doesn't always go your way, but, you try.
You go in, you talk to the casting agents, you're shit-talking the other people in other character voices. Let me tell you about Billy West. It's like, man, Sylvester hates Billy West. It's really a thing.
Foghorn Leghorn is a jerk.
At one time, this is actual reverse story of you guys who do voice work, where you get recognized from hearing your voice and not so much as being recognized in public based on, just somebody recognizing what you look like. I had the exact opposite experience with a legendary voice talent that I knew him from a television show that he was on currently. I was a little kid. We were at the airport, and I recognized this guy from a show called Out of This World, and his name is Joe Alaskey.
Oh my gosh. And
I was like, I was telling my dad, I was like, that's the guy from Out of This World. If you don't know Out of This World, it was about a teenage girl who had alien powers and she could stop time by doing this and clap and hit her hands and whatever. And he plays her uncle in the show. So it was kind of cool. We got to say hi to him. He was very nice. And then found out later as I got a little older that he was the voice of all these other people. Like he was a legendary voice guy that I had zero idea did any voices. I just knew him from a sitcom as a kid.
And I knew him the reverse way. I met him on Tiny Toons when he sat next to me and did the voice of Plucky Duck.
Wow.
That's so crazy.
Very talented guy, yeah.
He was my dad said he used to see him on there was an old show called Stand Up Spotlight that used to be hosted by Rosie O'Donnell on VH1, and Joe was featured on there now and then. And my dad used to tell me that Joe used to do a great Jackie Gleason.
Gleason, yeah.
He was built for the part, I
was gonna say he looked like he could play like a younger Jackie Gleason.
Yeah, he had the physicality of it, which was very impressive. And he did like some other like interesting oddball, like he did a Don Knotts that was really funny. Like, I mean, he was able to look like him. I don't know. He did something with his eyes. I mean, I do a Don Knotts, but I don't really resemble him,
It doesn't matter if you resemble him. Can you do? Nobody does a Don Knotts voice anyway. Could you please do some Don Knotts for us?
Well, Andy, you know the way Hilda May is. Andy Otis is going to get in trouble again. He's a big drunk, Andy. You've got to stop Otis, Andy. Well,
now do Don Knotts from Incredible Mr. Limpet, one of my favorite movies.
I love Mr. Limpet.
Love it. I wish I were a fish.
I wish I were a fish.
It's one of my favorites, and no one knows it. And I say that I wish I were a fish line to my kids, and they look at me like I'm speaking like gibberish, and I'm just like, I need to find that movie to watch. Like, have you watch what a good live action cartoon movie is?
Yeah, see, if you don't get your kids when they're young, if you don't introduce them to those characters, forget it.
Get new kids, I guess.
Exactly.
Right.
I'm seeing something in the chat here. Just want to bring this up here from Lucy Moody. What's the most coveted voice for you guys out there? What's the biggest voice that everyone's tried to get the job for?
Well, I would have to say the Rabbit Doc.
Fred Flintstone, that was a big voice.
Wow.
Do you think it might be Batman now since Kevin Conroy passed?
Oh, wow. I didn't think of that. No, I don't think, I'll tell you what, when Harry Shearer said he wasn't going to come back to The Simpsons unless he got more money, I know everybody was working on those characters. And then of course he, settled.
Yeah.
So that was like kind of a big thing. I mean, look, it's kind of weird, when an actor is in a negotiation and maybe they do want more money and maybe they're deserving of it, to go in and to audition, for somebody that created a voice that's doing it now. I personally don't feel comfortable with that. If somebody's deceased, it's different. But yeah, I don't know. That's a tough, I guess whatever voice, in the moment that they really need, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to audition for it. And now you've got people making YouTube videos and, TikTok videos and getting roles from doing that. It's crazy. People always ask me, well, how do you get into the industry? I said, well, start making videos. People watch these things.
It must be nice now where, it was such a difficult and coveted position to get any kind of voice work like that, because there was only so many outlets out there that were doing anything with animation. If it wasn't for commercials, you had Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers and Disney. That was like pretty much the big places to go to. Now you have DreamWorks and Netflix licenses and puts things together, and then Disney and Warner Brothers have fully expanded past what they were even doing now. One of our favorite shows is the Harley Quinn animated series, because it's just taking old characters or not lesser known characters, putting them in the same universe, and just, to quote the term, fucking around and finding out. They're not following the traditional rules for animation anymore. The dialogue is sometimes it's Seinfeld, sometimes it's Venture Brothers, sometimes they're it's like, well, the action's cool and all, but you're watching it to hear the dialogue. Like, they've reversed the whole process. Like, if you miss anything, you've missed a big chunk of what's going on, because it's either very important to what's happening or it's such a throwaway comment that it's hilarious.
Well, I mean, case in point, Jellystone. I don't know if either of you have seen that series where they take the Hanna-Barbera characters and bring them all together, from Top Cat to, and I play Yogi Bear, yay, and Wally Gator, and
I love Wally Gator. What a character!
Swing an alligator, and then Jinx the cat. I play on that, I get the Mises, and I mean, it's so much fun to have a scene with Top Cat and Wally Gator and Yogi and Augie Doggy and Daddy Doggy. They've just brought all these Hanna-Barbera characters together, but it's very fast paced. I mean, the show really moves. It's not like the 60s where it took 15 minutes for Yogi to trick Ranger Smith.
Hanna-Barbera has always been, and then whoever absorbed the Hanna-Barbera licenses has always been pretty ahead of that, like because you did voices on Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, and that was another. Essentially, you're at a bus station and all the different characters are coming in and out of the office because of some legal issue. And Harvey, who was played, I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Was it Gary Cole?
Yeah.
Did Harry?
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
So, he would be the main attorney. He had the crazy boss. And then today was, Shaggy got arrested on marijuana charges, so he's got to defend that. And then the next episode is something about Huckleberry Hound might have been a peeping Tom, so he's doing. But they're playing within that world. It's like, we got all these characters. Let's just break the walls down and have them just do weird stuff all the time. And I think it kind of rejuvenated that style of animation.
Oh, yeah, I think so. And I mean, look, Seth MacFarlane, I don't know that anyone does it really better than him. I mean, he's a little naughty, but, it invigorates the characters. It introduces them to kids of a new generation, because I don't know if kids can handle, like the old, I mean, I could just see my kids trying to listen to watch Mr. Magoo. That's not going to happen.
No, it's too slow. It's too, it's almost mind numbing at this point, even though you have an appreciation for it. It's like, I can't sit there and watch it. Cartoon Network used to be good with taking shots at those old commercials in a humorous way. They used to, they took a soul coughing song called Circles, and all it was just scenes of Fred and Barney walking, and you would just see the background move, and there was the window, there was the television, there's that window again, there's the television, there's the couch, because they just kept repeating the background. And the whole video, the song's playing, and it's just them walking as the scenery is repeating for like 3 minutes. Nobody did that in the late 90s, like the breaking down that kind of fourth wall and letting you see how some of this stuff worked. And they're making fun of the thing they're highlighting on this network here, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it was very subtle. If you got it, I always thought, animated wise, it was always fun to see the back of Fred and Barney's head, because their hair was like really small and their necks were so fat.
Yeah, they would do weird stuff like that, and then you go back even further to like when this stuff originated, even when they were still in black and white in the 60s.
Yeah.
They did cigarette ads. Like, because these were airing in prime time for adults. They were not meant for kids at the time, just like the old Looney Tunes reels were just supposed to be back in the day when you would go to the movie theater to watch the newsreel, a couple of films, entertainment stuff, it was like everything in one shot going to the movies. And the Looney Tunes cartoons from back then, even some of the Disney ones back then, referencing World War II and all that stuff, those were for the adults. They weren't for the kids. And then the crossover happened where it became more about the kids than the adults. They were doing smoking. They were doing liquor ads. They were doing car ads. You're like, wow, man, Fred and Barney get around.
Well, that was so funny because my brother and I often laugh about the old Lucky Strike commercials. You know, LSMFT, Lucky Strike means fine tobacco flavor. And when the announcer said it, it was like, oh my God, I'll be lucky if I smoke a Lucky. I'll get lucky. I'll be lucky if I smoke a Lucky Strike.
They really talked you into stuff. Like I listened to the old the shadow radio programs from like the 30s and the 40s, and just the guy talks about blue coal, and I'm like, yeah, I really need coal for my stove and all this stuff. Like they really had that going, and yeah, eventually later on into the 40s they started doing the cigarettes and the alcohol and things like that, but. Yeah, it was such a lost art. They don't do that much anymore.
No, and you think kids today, where are they getting most of their entertainment? You know, they're scrolling on TikTok, and so they don't see ads. You know, I mean, I remember I did a post, and it was, you know, it was just Captain Crunch because it was my favorite cereal as a kid. And so Captain Crunch cereal. I know with new crunch berries and strawberries. Oh, Captain Crunch
stays crunchy in milk.
Yeah, and some guy commented. He said, "My God." Hearing that voice, I could feel the roof of my mouth getting
ripped apart. Yeah,
yeah.
It's still my favorite cereal. Like I'll eat that right now.
It's the best.
Everyone says, "Oh my God, peanut butter Captain Crunch is the best out of all of them." Yeah, but everyone had the same line. It's like, "How bad was your throat after you?" Oh yeah, it was terrible. You're like, I ate 2 bowls, but it's still, you know, I couldn't eat anything the rest of the day.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. And of course, I never tried Fruity Pebbles, and it's like I'm doing Fruity Pebbles after all these years. Here I am, the voice of Barney. It's like, I don't know, it's about 17 years. And they brought a box of Pebbles to the recording session once. And I thought, oh my God, that's what it looks like. Oh, it just looks like little shredded pieces of wood that are colored.
Right.
It looks like mulch outside of a restaurant.
So I just took a handful and I went, oh my God, this doesn't feel like I'm eating anything. But it was good. I mean, it was, you know, and that's when the 90s, when they had to lower the sugar content from like 20 grams to like 13.
Yeah.
Which, you know, by today's standard is still a lot, you know.
Yeah, they lowered the sugar count, but they upped the aspartame and all the artificial sweeteners with it. So, yeah, you're not getting diabetes, but you might get cancer. Who knows?
That's right. It's a trade-off. Yeah.
Jeff, thank you for sitting here. I didn't realize how long we've been going.
I was going to say, holy moly.
You've given up way too much of your time to us. We are forever indebted to you, sir. Thank you for doing this. Let's do your plugs again one more time so everybody can see your virtual signing and get in on that action.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. I'm doing my first live signing on Whatnot this Saturday, August the 3rd, 11 a.m. PST. And to find out any more information about it, go to OCCelebritymarketing.com. And there you have it.
And then give him a follow on all the social medias there for Instagram, TikTok, and his YouTube channel at Jeff Bergman Official. Go there, follow all of those things, and he's a very lovely individual. If you chat him up there, I'm sure he'll chat you back and try to answer whatever he can with your questions about the fun world of animation. Jeff, again, thank you so much for taking out a big chunk of your time here for sitting and talking to 2 guys who value this stuff nowadays. Not that people don't,
big
but
part of my childhood.
Yeah,
like, I'm not even kidding. Like we talk a big game like that, but like you have touched everything that I grew up watching, have been a part of, and it's wonderful. I love that kind of stuff.
Oh, well, thank you both. This has been so much fun.
And this isn't the usual setting, so we won't do it now. But every time we've had other voice people on, they've cut an ID for the show. And we've had like Billy West, Robert Paulson, Maurice LaMarche, Ben Edlund, the original Tick, if you remember him.
Oh yeah,
from the Fox days. We've had a whole bunch of people. Maybe if you'd be kind enough, I'll send something over to you, and if you could record some, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'll do a few voices absolutely for you. Sure, whatever you guys want.
Jeff, we love you. Thank you so much. Have a good time this weekend. Go over to Whatnot, sign up there, watch and talk to Jeff, and then go buy some of his merchandise that he has for you. You won't be disappointed.
And that's all, folks.